there is a most beautiful teaching from the Cherokee tradition, which says all of us can trace our roots to that one great tree of peace, life itself. What a teaching that is. And if we took it one bit seriously, what a peaceful as well as radiant world we'd live in. Because we would really be acknowledging the profundity of what we share, which is life itself. And don't all the differences between us shrink when we contemplate the wonder of that? That each of us is born and hopes to live to the full before we leave this earth and move on. That is life itself. That we are born, that we live, and that we die. That is the expression of life. That is how the soul manifests itself in the physical universe. I was thinking so much about this theme over the last few days, and I was really considering in a very fresh and deep way, even though this is a perennial theme for all spiritual seekers, that one of the most urgent healings that we must all participate in, and participation is a key word here, is the healing of the relationship between ourselves, between us and the rest of the world's human family, and most especially on the earth on which we depend. How could we neglect this? This is as urgent and utterly congruent with healing the relationships between body and soul, between heart and mind, between self and other. Those are the primary relationships we must heal, and we heal them through also healing the relationship we have to our own gift of life. When we love this gift of life that we have been given, when we love it sufficiently, then love for all other forms of life will flow so naturally. This means seeing all of life as sacred, and until we do see all of life is sacred, we will not bring the kingdom to earth. We will not bring heaven to earth. We will not experience the full joyousness as well as the full-hearted compassion of what it means to be human. In fact, we won't be fully human, we won't be fully divinized human beings until we see the sacred in all forms of life. Nature is our profound teacher in this, because it means healing our relationship with all of the world's creatures. Our human family, but also the creatures on and beneath the earth, the creatures of the sea and the creatures of the skies. All of the elements represented in the amazing plant forms, in all the physical forms that could delight us every day if we opened our eyes to see them. This is peacemaking at its most fundamental, because it is the restoration of communion between us and life itself in all its manifest forms. This is the great lesson, of course, of all of the indigenous religions, including that of this land of ours, Australia. Just this morning, my partner Paul alerted me from his home in Darwin to a reminder from Aboriginal spiritual teacher Miriam Rose Ungunmerr-Baumann, who tells us with exceptional timeliness that the tradition of Dadirri, deep listening to the land, deep listening to the land, is central to the spirituality of her people, and needs to be central to the spirituality of all people, I would humbly add. Australia needs to know, says Miriam Rose, that Dadirri can help you slow down, stop. How wonderfully that echoes the words that Brad brought us. And this strikes me as vital. Deep listening to the land can help you realize who you are, what you're about, where you're going and where you belong. We belong to this earth. We belong to the heavens and we belong to this earth. Miriam Rose says, it's our makeup, it's our spirit. Sometimes our spirit is hurting, is waning, and we have to call on it to revive our drooping spirit. And to do that, she adds, we call on the deep, and the deep calls on us. Now, how radiantly that also expresses something else she reminds us of, which is Psalm 42, verse 7, where we are told the deep calls to deep in the roar of your waterfalls. All your waves and breakers have swept over me. In other words, this is an ancient message that is as fresh as this very moment on this very day. Because that is the same psalm that begins as a deer longs for flowing streams. So my soul longs for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, the living God. When shall I behold your face? And we are asked in so many of the scriptures to behold the face of God in all that we could call the created or the manifest world. To behold the beauty, the sorrow, the transitoriness in all that lives in this created world. We can look to nature not just as mother, our mother nature, but also as teacher and guide. And in thinking about this, I wanted to really commend to you the spiritual practice of learning each day from nature and making a note of what you learn and sharing it with one another, just as Brad described in his talk. That he has allowed himself through photography, but we can allow it also through the gift of simply looking deeply, of deep presence, of taking in what nature can give us and learning from it. So these 10 lessons that I will share with you very briefly and inadequately because of time are just hints for the ways in which you too can look at your mother nature, your guide, your teacher. The first lesson, of course, comes from and reflects that Cherokee teaching. It is that we all emerge from a single source, life itself, God itself, the ground of being itself. We all emerge from the same place. We all return to the same place. We all share the livingness of the living in a body, in a manifest form. How precious is that? The second of the lessons is that our interdependence in this life is absolute. Our beloved teacher Thich Nhat Hanh calls it interbeing. We cannot be without the beingness of others. Doesn't it make perfect sense? And doesn't it challenge the dualistic mind so profoundly and so wonderfully? We lean together, we draw from one another, we are inspired by one another. We need the gifts of kindness from one another on a daily basis. And the earth also needs our tenderness, our intelligence, our vividness, and our commitment to our fidelity to honor it. There's a Sanskrit proverb which begins like this: look to this day, for it is life. The very life of life, in its brief course, lie all the realities and truths of existence, the bliss of growth, the splendor of action. That's the salutation to the sun, but of course it doesn't also bring in the moon, the declining, the particular radiance of the moon set against the darkness of the sky. And oh, there is so much we can learn from the radiance of the moon. So the third lesson is that life infinitely and inevitably renews itself. Plato said so wonderfully, the soul of an oak tree is in the acorn. We are constantly becoming. How could we be anything but hopeful? And how could we do anything but share the gifts of hope with others? To deny hope to others is to deny their humanity and ours along with it. Hope is the greatest gift that we must constantly give. We can talk about love, yes, but love must be expressed through the gift of hope and renewal. The fourth lesson is a really exquisite one, which is that life manifests itself in great variety. Why do we need to be so afraid of difference? Why can't we rejoice in difference as well as in what we share? Is every flower that you see as you pass by the same? No, of course it is not. And one of the wonderful ways in which this difference exemplifies itself through nature occurs so bountifully in this city of ours. It was one of the things that quite entranced me when I first came to live in Sydney, when I first came to live in Australia, which was how nature breaks through this city so constantly, comes through the cracks, hangs over the buildings, is just everywhere. And in this springtime, of course, it gives us smells as well as sights, and how lucky we are to have that. The fifth of the lessons is that we are absolutely and inevitably dependent on the physical elements of earth, air, fire, and water. We are dependent on them at the physical level, and we are also dependent on them at the metaphysical level. I'm going to speak to you at the end of our service today about the impending visit from Piazia Inayat Khan, who writes so profoundly, as his grandfather, Hazrat Inayat Khan, has done also, about the sacredness of the elements, reminding us also that it is breath itself that connects body to soul. Each time we breathe consciously, we are allowing soul to express itself through the body. We are making a sacrament of breath, as indeed it needs to be. And it is no coincidence that the Holy Spirit is given to us to imagine, to grow closer to absorb, to bring not just into our hearts but into our life as the Spirit, the breath. The sixth is that these elements have their mirroring symbolic forms. The air we breathe, the fires of our interest and attention, the water, our sensitivity to the living waters, the emotional responses that we have, and also the emotional responses that we evoke in others. And again, how do we ground this? Through our action, through our conduct, through our reaching out and allowing ourselves to be reached towards. We learn so much from that little phrase, contemplation and action. that we could grow in understanding until we had the understanding of giants. And unless we are bringing it to the ground of our daily being, of our daily lives, we are wasting our efforts. We are literally wasting our breath until we allow the fire of inspiration to come to the ground of our conduct. The seventh of the lessons is that the physical is seasonal, temporal, and impermanent. Nature reveals itself to us even as it is passing. We can never catch it in a fixed form. We can never catch ourselves in a fixed form. We are dynamic beings with profound choices to make about who we are constantly becoming. Isn't that exciting? That is so exciting, because that is the heart of renewal, that is at the heart of consciousness and of conscience. That each of us has the potential to be a destroyer. Each of us has a profound soul-led, soul-affirming potential to restore harmony, beauty, service, and love. This is a choice we can make on a daily basis, that we baptize that choice with air, fire, water, and earth. The eighth is very brief. Every day is a new beginning. The ninth choice is that we owe it to one another. We owe it to the gift of life to be caretakers of this earth. The earth is not ours to plunder. The creatures are not ours to destroy. It is our gift as supposedly sentient beings to protect what we depend upon. And doesn't this bring to life the very phrase, common sense? Shouldn't we be holding it in common that our common sense would tell us to protect, tender, harvest wisely what we all depend upon for our common good? The 10th lesson is the simplest of all. So perhaps it's really the first lesson. Let us love life more. Let us love life on a daily, hourly basis, even when it does not seem to be serving itself up to us in exactly the ways we would have chosen. Let our love be increasingly unconditional and unreserved. Let us grow in love, and let us heal ourselves and our world through love. I want to conclude with a tiny teaching from Sri Aurobindo. The spirit shall look out through matter's gaze, and matter shall reveal spirit's face, and all the earth shall become a single life. Blessed.